And we didn't release this puzzle until 2016. So before that, puzzles were kind of just like a hobby for us, jigsaw puzzles, and something we did on the side. People didn't really know about. It was sort of just like something that we were excited about for ourselves, but wasn't really a big part of our business. And then we released this puzzle, and it went completely viral on Facebook. And then all of a sudden, we were a puzzle company. So this puzzle is very unusual in that it is a double-sided puzzle, but it's not like a normal double-sided puzzle where the two sides are completely separate and, just like different images. It is a edgeless puzzle where pieces from one side connect to the opposite side with a flip. So it actually makes one continuous image from the top to the bottom. And this sort of mathematically is equivalent to it having the same topology as a Klein bottle, if you're familiar with such things. And so the Klein bottle is this kind of quote-unquote impossible shape that is non-orientable. So it's like a bottle that has no inside and no outside. So similar to that, the Galaxy puzzle has no top and bottom side. It's all just one side. And so that makes it extra challenging. I put a poll on Mastodon asking people how long they think it would take me. I gave them choice of 1, 2, 4, 3, or 4+ hours. And I got a lot of 1 or 2 hours, which really is quite a lot of confidence in my puzzling ability. I also had one person respond that they think it took their wife 10 hours to complete. So hopefully it doesn't take me that long, but probably more than 2 hours. We're not going to do it all today. So part of what we're going to do with these streams, besides just puzzling and chatting for fun, is we're going to be timing all of these puzzles as I do them. And one thing that's going to do is give us a kind of baseline for how hard our different puzzles are. Because it's a very common question. What are your hardest puzzles? How hard are these puzzles? How long is it going to take? Everybody has different puzzling experience. So it's kind of like hard to answer that in absolute terms because we've had, for the same puzzle, people complain that it's too hard, and other people complain that it's too easy. But at least if I do all of these puzzles in kind of the same conditions, we have sort of records of doing them all, then we'll have something that people can reference to know, like, okay, relatively speaking, how is this puzzle? All right. So without further ado, I'm gonna start my timer and then get going. And feel free to just post any questions in the chat if you have something on your mind, puzzle related or not. Otherwise, I might just talk about the Galaxy puzzle as I'm doing it. All right, here we go. Comes with the sleeve. We gotta get that sleeve off. Slide it off. So you could cut these little tabs. This puzzle has just 139 pieces, which probably doesn't sound like a lot if you're coming from a traditional cardboard die cut puzzle world. But given that it has no edge and the pieces are much more complex than traditional pieces, it is quite a challenge. Now, conveniently, because it's double-sided, we get to avoid the tedious starting by flipping over all of our pieces to the right side, because we don't know which side is the right side, or how many pieces are going to be flipped which way when we put it together. How many times have I done this puzzle before? Just once, and I did it with Jessica, and that was when we first made the puzzle in 2016. So that was like almost 9 years ago. So I don't have any particularly special puzzling experience to help me out here, except for like the general having done these kinds of puzzles, having done other wooden puzzles, and sort of knowing the idea of the puzzle, which might be kind of confusing at first. So because we don't have an edge to start with, that was kind of like one of the main ideas making this puzzle, is that typically when you have a puzzle, you start with the edge, and that's sort of like, I don't want to say a crutch, but it's like that is just how one would typically start a puzzle, and this kind of subverts your first instinct when you sit down to do a puzzle, and how that changes what doing the puzzle is like. So what we do have is we have these three whimsy or figure pieces. We've got an astronaut, a satellite, and a space shuttle. So those are kind of our edge pieces. So we're going to find those first, and then we can kind of identify which pieces probably are connected to these whimsy pieces because they have shapes that are less weird than our other shapes. Got our spaceman's arms. Looking for anything with like smooth or straight edges. This goes somewhere. Is it the helmet? Yes. Now, because I'm starting these whimsies separately, at some point I may have to reconcile which direction they're flipped, because I may be starting them flipped in opposite directions. You kind of have to check both sides to know where you are. I don't know. Just collecting our pieces that are connected to whimsies. They're kind of different color zones. It is also notable that this doesn't come with a picture of the complete puzzle. It just comes with this picture and the front picture. And part of that is because even when you complete the puzzle, you can't actually see the whole picture at once. Half of it is always going to be on the bottom side. So you can rearrange it to see the whole thing, or you can buy two puzzles and combine them to see the whole image. But normally, when you put it together, you're not even going to see the whole image. So that does maybe also add a little bit of an extra challenge. Man, this is going to take a while. Is there something or not? Can't tell. Yes, the registration is definitely tight enough that pieces from different puzzles will fit together. That is one of the advantages of cutting things with computer controlled machines as opposed to cutting them by hand. These puzzles are actually also cut with a camera system. So there's a camera on the laser which identifies spots on the puzzle to align the cut to the image because, I mean, almost more difficult than registering it with another puzzle is it has to register with itself flipped over on the opposite side. And that's actually extra hard because the flipping kind of doubles any error that you have. All right, I gotta focus on what I'm doing. I gotta find some pieces. Start kind of like trying to categorize some colors here. Does that actually go together? Yes. Nice. Gotta finish our whimsies, which I haven't even done. This goes with the rocket. It's not a rocket, it's a space shuttle. Yeah, the flips make things extra annoying. Now that we have this whole camera system, it makes things a lot easier. But when we first started, we really had like very little. So, when we now have, several lasers, and they're very nice. We use Trotec lasers, Speedy 360s. They're very fast, very consistent. When we first started, we just had one Epilogue Helix, which was, fine at the time. It was what we could afford. But when we launched these puzzles, they sort of like went totally viral and we were completely unprepared. Like, we had been doing these puzzles for like 5 years, 4 or 5 years, and they were just like this weird little side thing that nobody really cared about because like puzzles are just this kind of niche thing. And then all of a sudden, it totally blew up and we launched the puzzle. We hadn't even like finished the packaging design yet. We were like, we'll just see like how many orders we get. And then we had like 1,000 orders in a couple of weeks and had to figure out how to make them. Sort of like doing a Kickstarter, but instead of being like this is going to ship in a year, it was like this is going to ship in 4 weeks. All right, we got to finish our little whimsy bits. One of the things that I find hard to do is to think about color and shape at the same time. I'm usually only looking for one or the other at once. These things have got to be like somewhere, right? This is right here. It's sitting here the whole time. Alright, I'm just trying to focus for one moment here. Just to make some progress. Who knows how long this will take. Right now I'm on the easy part. Eventually I'll just be in blurred bits of space and star dots. Nothing to hold on to. Alright, getting somewhere here. This has got to be something, right? This can be a bit tricky. Yeah, I find myself kind of like slipping into different modes where I'm like just looking at the shape and then I like just completely forget like, oh yeah, I can like look at the colors. But, our puzzles tend to be much more shape focused than traditional jigsaw puzzles. You end up sort of creating all of these different categories in your head of numbers of little wiggly bits and different kind of like shapes. I've got a double bunny ear that goes into this area with a little wiggly bit on the side. I suppose with this puzzle especially, thinking about shape is helpful because you're not going to flip over every single piece and check what color's on the other side. Yeah, so when we first launched this puzzle, like I said, we were totally unprepared for the amount of orders that we got. And we ended up doing something crazy, which is probably like one of the most difficult things that I've ever done in my life, which is we were like, well, in order to produce all these puzzles, we're gonna have to be like running our laser 24 hours a day. And so Jessica and I went on opposite sleep schedules to produce puzzles and worked like 16-hour days. My shift started at 4 a.m. And it was just sort of like a non-stop insanity for like more than a month. Uh, we didn't really take any lunch breaks, just ate standing up, got pizza delivered. We did have, some help, some employees that were helping us. We also had to hire additional help. We also had to buy another laser cutter. So while we were sort of frantically making things, constantly running out of things, realizing like our website could only send so many emails per day, so then we had to like set up a new mail server. Basically everything that could go wrong did go wrong. And while doing that, also having to hire people and expand our operations. It was kind of total madness. So then when we had kids, people are like, this is the hardest thing you're ever going to do in your life. You can't be prepared for it. We're like, no, we're kind of prepared. Like, we've completely destroyed our sleep schedule on a dime and had a task that we could not take any breaks from whatsoever for an extremely long, extended slog of a time. I think we can handle this. And it was true. It wasn't that bad. I mean, it's still hard, but when you've done that sort of thing before, you're comes as less of a shock. We're getting there with our whimsy pieces now. Ugh. Pretty close to completion on most of these. At some point I will have to start flipping over pieces. Look for different colors. This puzzle does have some pretty distinct color zones, so that helps. Ooh, look at that shape. Look at that. Nice. I do still want to finish all of these little whimsy pieces, though. Here we go. Astronaut is almost completely encapsulated, except for his toe. That one is going to be maybe a bit harder to spot. But it does have kind of a distinctive shape there. This one feels like it could be connected to something, but doesn't seem like it actually is. Goes right here, though. Oh no, what happened to my timer? There it is. 22 minutes gone by already? My goodness. I kind of felt like I was doing pretty good, but maybe not. I'm curious what other people's times are for this puzzle. I mean, I'm sure most people don't necessarily time themselves doing puzzles. Also, most people don't necessarily do puzzles just like totally solo. I know I certainly don't tend to do puzzles solo. And some people do. No judgment. But it's hard to gauge, certainly two people don't do puzzles twice as fast as one person, but it's hard to gauge what the differences between doing a puzzle by yourself versus doing it with others is. I can blame a lot of things. But like I was saying, sort of the point is to have a timing with kind of a normalized condition, so I'll always have chat distracting me, so it's fine. And also, most people when they're doing a puzzle, they're not necessarily like totally focused. They might be chatting with their friends or family as they're doing it. We're not trying to figure out what is the absolute optimal time for completing this puzzle. We're just trying to casually do the puzzle and then see how long it takes. So I do feel like I used to be better at puzzles 10 years ago. I also used to think I was better at puzzles before I went to the Puzzle Parlay, which, if you don't know, is like sort of the biggest meeting of wooden jigsaw puzzle enthusiasts. Mostly people who are like really into hand cut wooden jigsaw puzzles, but there's increasingly a diverse set of people going there to make laser cut or other CNC puzzles, and younger crowds now. And some people who go to the Puzzle Parlay are like way better at jigsaw puzzles than I am. Yeah, I've met some speed puzzling people before, but I don't know if they've like specifically tried to tackle this puzzle. I'm certainly not doing this in any kind of optimal way at the moment. I feel like what I really should be doing is trying to color sort these pieces, which I've kind of done, but not completely focused on. Like I've got all these pieces in the same kind of color family going on here. I just have to figure out how they're connected. And then you see a shape and you're like, ooh, I really ought to be able to find that shape. And you get distracted. Sometimes it's hard to identify the positive shape that goes into a negative shape. You think you know what it looks like, but then it's not quite what you think, except I think this is the shape that I'm looking for. This is not made in Grasshopper. We don't really use Grasshopper very much, though it is something we sometimes like automate tasks with or do certain kinds of operations with. Almost all of the things that we make are made in custom C++ programs that we write. This was actually originally made in a processing program based off of a simulation of what is called diffusion, not diffusion, blah, 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 dendritic solidification, which is a simulation of a crystal growth process that happens in supercooled fluids. But we've made kind of various modifications on it to kind of turn it into a jigsaw puzzle generating system. Since then, the system, I've ported it to CUDA, so it runs on the GPU, which is much faster. The most notable kind of like modification of this simulation that we had to do to make it a jigsaw puzzle is that, you know, dendritic solidification simulation is a simulation of a liquid growing into or turning into a solid. But in our jigsaw puzzle land, the sort of we're imagining the boundary between every piece is like a crystal growth process. And so you can imagine between any two pairs of pieces, one's a solid and one's a liquid, but we don't just have two pieces, we've got hundreds of pieces. And then you no longer have that sort of simple relationship because if you have, a solid next to a liquid, then there's a third piece next to both of them. And what is that? So you have to make what's called a multi-phase model of dendritic solidification, which doesn't make any physical sense, doesn't really have any analog in the real world, but we can make it make mathematical sense. And therefore we can turn it into a simulation to make jigsaw puzzles. All a very technical way to make some jigsaw puzzles. All right, we've completely encapsulated the space shuttle. Hmm. This looks more like I'll be able to connect it if I flip it over. Maybe. Da, da, da. Now we've got a big chunk. Now we're getting somewhere. Thanks. I mean, there's definitely always more to talk about in terms of the process, and I'm happy to answer any questions that you have or babble on about different things. We certainly don't make puzzles this way because it's necessarily the optimal way of making puzzles. We make them this way because it's just the things that we're interested in and excited about. I mean, we've given a lot of talks over the years. Uh, Not necessarily specifically about jigsaw puzzles. I mean, almost none of our talks are specifically about one thing, one project. They usually are sprawling and overly dense. And also I'm not sure where they would be recorded. I would say probably one of the more technical talks we've given was at Illustrating Mathematics, which is a conference at ICERM at Brown University, which was actually the first kind of talk where we talked about this puzzle and these kind of what we call infinity puzzles or tiling puzzles, which do not have any sort of fixed shape or border. Cool. Thanks for posting the link. That was a great conference. Met a lot of people and also got some very helpful ideas about some things related to jigsaw puzzle manufacturing. We worked with somebody there to refine our puzzle ordering algorithm, which is the order in which the lines are cut with the laser, because we specifically order things. We actually cut things raised up off the bed, and then we have to create an ordering for cutting that makes sure that no pieces fall before a line inside of them is cut. Yeah, I mean, I assume that that iCERM talk is recorded somewhere. I've never looked at it or looked for it. This was like, I think, one of the first iCERM conferences, and now there've been a lot. Seem like they're always having conferences. Cool. I can't guarantee there's anything helpful in that talk. I don't remember exactly what we talked about. Though I do have it saved somewhere. All right, I gotta focus on jigsaw puzzles. I've basically reached the big ambiguous phase of the puzzle where I have to like come up with a new strategy for what I'm doing. I really want this to go somewhere. I'll just keep looking for pieces. Oh, I recognize this piece actually. This is a corner piece in the configuration that it's cut in, so it's notable. Not that it helps me really know where it is, I just recognize the piece. Sort of looks to be in this family somewhere. You want me to connect all the deep purple magenta pieces? Well, me too. If I knew how they went together, I would do that. Oops. All right. Let's look for some colors. See what we can find. I feel like sometimes you just find things instantaneously. You just like see them. And they're like, I'm so good. Amazing. I just see the matrix. And then you sit there for like 10 minutes and you're not connecting any pieces. You're like, I do not see the matrix. I see nothing. You just see a sea of squiggly shapes. Still haven't found this astronaut's toe either. Maybe I should just look for the astronaut's toe. See if I can find that. Oh, we have 40 minutes. Yeah, sorry people who voted for 1 hour. That's definitely not even close to happening. Maybe I'll somehow pick up the pace. I don't think 2 hours is happening either. piece is kind of similar. There we go. I feel like this had a bunch of white on the other side, didn't it? This is my white area. Yeah. I just flip this whole thing. So much more distinct. That one, not so much. Pretty much the same. And you're like, ooh, look at this little wiggly bit. That's a shape. We could find that shape. It's a little crab claw with a wart on the back. Can I find this crab claw with a wart on the back? Oh, is this anything? No. It's kind of in this family. Maybe. Maybe not directly. I'll find more white bits, but I'll flip every single piece. This looks so similar. It's got to connect somehow. Okay, okay. Making progress. Slowly but surely. Yeah, definitely the like bunny ears and the crab claw, they're like the most common. So everything is their own distinct little wiggle to it. Is it like a fat bunny ear or a thin bunny ear? And you've got like a triple finger thing. But then, sometimes you don't even know, like, are those actually together in one piece or are those two separate pieces? Though, in this cut, generally the corners are pretty visible. There is going to be a break in the pieces. Not necessarily super visible, but it's usually identifiable. Some other cuts we've tried to like hide the corners more. So, I mean, usually when we're making a puzzle, it's like we're not necessarily trying to make something easy or difficult. We're just trying to make it interesting. So, removing like the edge from the puzzle on these puzzles, that was sort of the idea, was like, actually, this originally started when I made a puzzle as a Christmas present for my brother. And we made this puzzle that was meant to be like an extra hard puzzle. So it had no image, just plain wood. And it had no sort of like hard edge. It just had kind of a frilly piece-shaped edge. And then it had a set of pieces in it that pulled out and made another sub-puzzle. So there was like a set of pieces embedded in the larger puzzle that pulled out and also combined to form their own puzzle. It's what we now call the challenge puzzle on our website. So I made this puzzle as a puzzle to be like an extra hard thing for my brother. But then we were like, but like this puzzle really does have a border. It didn't like not have a border, just the border still looked like puzzle pieces. And so that's kind of what got us down this train of thought to make the galaxy puzzle. Was like, okay, well what's a puzzle that really doesn't have a border? Well, that's a puzzle that tiles where the pieces connect from one side to the other. And we're like, well, tiling, that's kind of like interesting, but what else can we do with that? And so we sort of were inspired by ideas from algebraic topology, where you have these kind of fundamental shapes of different surfaces. So if you have like a square that tiles, that is kind of the fundamental shape of a torus. But then there are little tweaks on that that you can do to make other kinds of surfaces. So one of them is if you flip one edge so that it tiles, but with a flip, you get the Klein bottle. And so we were like, well, what happens when we do that with a puzzle? What does that make? And so that is what birthed the idea of this infinite galaxy puzzle. Okay, I got something. Slowly but surely making progress. I'm gonna have to like stop at some point, and I'm not gonna want to stop. Just imagining in my head people watching this and being able to like see the piece that goes somewhere and being like, just put that piece together, it's right there. But you have no way of actually describing what anything is. So even if you wanted to do backseat puzzling, it would be like impossible. It'd be harder to backseat puzzle than to just do the puzzle. It's like Jessica's message earlier. Just connect the purple magenta pieces. Oh yeah, those ones. Of course. I still never found that little crab claw thing that I was looking for. This is like a little crab claw, not the same though. Wait, is this it? This is it. This is my crab claw. Haha. Yeah, I'm sure the stream delay also helps. That one right there, you're pointing to it right now. No, that was 10 seconds ago. This one also looks pretty distinct. It's sort of like a bunny ears, but it's like a short, fat bunny ears. It's hard to say why certain shapes seem to stand out among all of the squiggly bits that there are. I do feel like I used to be much better at puzzles, but maybe looking back on things more fondly than are true. We used to do trade shows, and you'd just be sitting around waiting to talk to people. You do a puzzle. I feel like I could do like an agate puzzle in 30 minutes. No, I did not feed Kimchi dinner. Kimchi is one of our cats. Very important insights from the chat. Oh, here's another like crab claw thing. I feel like I saw that even somewhere, but maybe it was a different crab claw. Hmm. I really do feel like I ought to be able to connect more of these nebula cloud-esque pieces. Question, what's on the other side of these? Dark blue, dark blue purple. These ones are a little different though. This one, also kind of that dark blue purple. Oh wow. Are there any of our old out of stock products that you think will never come back? Well, never is hard to say, but we're probably not going to make the 3D printed ceramic jewelry ever again. Just because, well, a lot of reasons, but basically because it was not efficient to produce it, had too many problems. Though, even though I say that, I'm still like, there's still a little bit of hope in the back of my mind that we can figure out a way to do it. There are certain products which we've kind of retired that I don't even know if they appear on our website anymore. I don't think they do, but they're like, a lot of times when we make a collection of pieces, we've designed kind of a software system that creates these pieces and allows us to make, hundreds or an endless variety. And then, of course, we can't actually like decide which ones we think are the best, and so we release it with lots and lots of different designs often. And then eventually, some of those designs sell a lot better than others, and it doesn't make sense to have like 10 varieties of bracelets that are kind of the same. Some of our Cell Cycle bracelets we open sourced and put on Thingiverse, and then we stopped selling them on our website. The ceramic cups are a very common question of if we're going to start making those ever again. And the short answer is not soon. We don't have any immediate plans to start producing those. We stopped producing them when we moved from Boston, Somerville to upstate New York in the Catskills because we had to build a whole new studio space, and we had actually planned to start producing ceramic in our new studio, but then the pandemic hit, and with the pandemic there was a jigsaw puzzle boom. So we kind of just ended up taking up all of our space with jigsaw puzzle stuff and never set up a ceramics workshop. But now jigsaw puzzle demand has waned a bit. So there's some chance we'll want to put our attentions on setting up our ceramics space again. But it's a bit of a logistical question, mostly, of ceramics makes a lot of silica dust, which is dangerous, and also you want it separated from other things. You don't want your silica dust to get on your puzzles, and you don't want your puzzle ash from lasers getting on your ceramics. So you need kind of very separate spaces to do these things. All right, I've stalled here. I gotta make some progress. I gotta find something. Wait, this is that crab claw I was talking about. He was right there. And what about this really light blue? That's got to be findable, but it might be flipped over. I mean, this is really light blue. It's also got a bit of a claw. Not there at the moment. Is this? Yes. I'm just gonna have to flip over every single piece, find the light blue. Getting messages on my phone. There's a COVID outbreak in my daughter's school, so school is canceled tomorrow. She's 3, so it's not regular school. But that's a bummer. Alright, we got another one of these nebula pieces. Surely we can find this somewhere. There we go. So sometimes you just find a piece and then you're like, oh yeah, goes right there. Done. Then you sit there for like minutes at a time getting nothing. And who knows, it's probably just staring you in the face. Just don't see it. Of course, also maybe it's just flipped wrong, and sometimes it's hard to see mirrored pieces. This one goes there. What's on the other side of these? Kind of blue, slightly dotted. Something like this. No. This goes in my nebula area. Hmm. Another one for the nebula area. Maybe I just need more nebula pieces to get it all connected up. Just because something's been around for 18 years doesn't mean it's should get rid of it. All right. Connected some more of these light blue pieces. Now, there is one thing that you can do to make your life a little bit easier doing this puzzle is that you can actually use the kerf of the laser to kind of identify which side is which. When the laser cuts, one side is slightly wider than the other side. So theoretically, you could look at every piece and kind of try to evaluate which side looks thinner than the other side. You could flip them all over to be on the same side. But I kind of view that as cheating. Also very tedious. So I'm specifically not really looking for that while I'm doing this puzzle. There are puzzles where I have used that before. When we first made like the patchwork amoeba puzzle, we didn't have anything distinguishing which side was which. That was pretty necessary. Maybe it wasn't the patchwork amoeba, it was some sort of amoeba puzzle with no image. This is also like one of the corner pieces when it's cut. Don't know where it is. There are certain specific stars that we use on the puzzle to check the alignment. There are certain stars that get cut by the laser. And so I know those specific stars very well. Not that I actually know which stars they are, but I'm like, oh, I recognize that star. That is one of the stars that we use to check how well we aligned this puzzle. Doesn't really help me know where it is, but there it is. One of our alignment stars. I don't think you can even tell on the camera that that's a star, but the alignment's pretty good. Feel some sort of... Oh, here we go. There's the really light blue. That's probably the end of the really light blue, though. Ooh, it's been an hour and 10 minutes. Well, I've made okay progress for an hour and 10 minutes, I think. I do think at some point it gets slightly easier, though I don't think I've reached the point where it gets easier. I think I'm probably still at the point where it's going to get harder. That's a good chunk, though. That's a good little chunk. Just go somewhere? Don't know. Don't know. Wait, does this go right here? Yes. These two things were sitting next to each other. Hmm. I should probably call this at like 9 o'clock. Getting close here. I feel like maybe this is transitioning into this. Maybe. This piece looks familiar. Like I've seen that. But where? I suppose it would help if I was referencing some sort of image. Hi, ate a fruit. That's awesome. Thanks so much for tuning in. Yeah, that'd be fun. I'd be happy to go on the show. We'll see how this goes. See if I have the stamina to stick with this and how long it takes me to do one puzzle. Thanks. Yeah, I know I picked a hard one. That's sort of the point. Maybe. Maybe it would have been smart to pick an easy one. Yeah, we wanted to pick a time to do this when the studio wouldn't be too loud and it wouldn't be totally unreasonable. So this is really the only time that makes any sense. Otherwise, we have our like laser exhaust fans going, and there's like a jet engine going off in the studio. Not a good time to stream. Also, theoretically, I'm supposed to be like getting work done during those times, not just doing puzzles. So this doubles as, it's sort of work, but it's also sort of just sitting around doing a puzzle. That was one of the ideas doing this. One of the ideas, like I said at the start, was is just like being able to have kind of a normalized timing of all of our puzzles. It's a very common question of like, how long does this puzzle take, or how hard is this puzzle? And others just to like have a way of, kind of doing something around puzzles that is fun, that isn't doesn't seem like a drag. Just doing a puzzle. I don't make time to do puzzles that much anymore, and so this is a nice excuse to spend some time doing puzzles. Yeah, thanks for stopping by. Have a good night. I gotta make some progress though. I gotta make some progress. I would say my focus is waning, but I don't think I've had any focus this whole time. I feel like this piece is so distinctive, but I think it has a corner in it, so we probably don't even have the pieces together that make that shape. For some reason, I feel like I see negative spaces more. They stand out to me more than the corresponding positive spaces. I see all these like negative spaces where I'm like, ooh, I should be able to find that. And then I don't actually see the corresponding positive piece that fits into it. Thanks so much. Can I find this piece? Yes, I can. It's right here. It's right here. See, some pieces, you're just like, oh, that looks like a shape that is distinct, and then you're just like, it just pops out and you see it. But I feel like sometimes when you're doing a puzzle, you're not actually like looking for anything specific, and you're just like, something ought to connect somewhere. And you're like, I'm looking at blue things. I don't know. But then when you actually try to look for something that is specific, it's a much better strategy to find pieces that go together. I mean, you can also just be doing more of a meta strategy of sorting pieces, which I have not done that well. I've done a little bit. Then you're not really looking for anything specific. You're just preparing to look for things. And sometimes when you're doing that, things jump out at you. You know, you kind of start to have things jump out at you, and then you just expect everything to jump out at you. And it doesn't work like that. You actually have to look for things, specific things. Which I'm not doing right now. We got something. But this still looks like it's in this regime. Maybe. Maybe not. And you're like, look at that fat thing. That's got to be somewhere. Oh yes, if you're just joining us, this is a double-sided puzzle, but it's also borderless. It tiles with a flip. So not only is it double-sided, but actually it's kind of one continuous side and image from the top to the bottom. So you don't necessarily know where you are in the image and which way things need to be flipped in order to connect, and how, depending on how you assemble it, you might have to flip whole sections to get them to go together. Thank you. It's inspired by ideas from topology and sort of the topology of a Klein bottle, or another example of a exotic weird surface that's hard to imagine is a projective plane, which is a double flip. So this puzzle only flips in one direction, though I mean when you're doing it you don't really know what direction is what. Projective plane flips both left to right and top to bottom. If you when you imagine it as a rectangle, and then that gets really weird. We do have another puzzle, which is the Infinite Galaxy 2, which is based on the projective plane with a double flip. And the weird thing about the double flip is that in the corners, you flip one way, and then you flip the other way. But a double flip is a 180-degree rotation. And so at the two corners of the puzzles, a piece connects kind of to itself, rotated 180, not actually to itself, but basically kind of to itself. So it's just very confusing. It's actually confusing when we designed it, so I did not exactly realize that that would happen, that a piece is sort of like connected to itself. So we actually had to sort of like modify the design so that that kind of singularity gets cut, because otherwise you have a piece that literally connects to itself and it just doesn't make any sense. It's not physically makeable. Okay, I was looking for this little fat arm. Let's go back to looking for that fat arm. See if we can find it. What if it's already in something? It's possible. I don't think so, though. I don't think it's in any of the things that I've already made. But what about this? This is so distinct. No. No, I'm looking for the fat arm. This is like almost symmetric. That's what makes it distinct. I still haven't even fully encapsulated my figure pieces. I've still got the toe of the astronaut and this little tip of the satellite. Alright, it is after 9 o'clock, so maybe I should just call it. Stop here for the day, and we'll pick up again next week. Thanks everybody for tuning in, but I really want to find this little fat arm. Wait, here we go. Here we go, right there. Bam, we're done. Let's pause the timer. Pause the timer. Okay, that's it. We're at 1 hour and 27 minutes. Thanks everybody for tuning in. We will do this again next week. And hopefully, in the intervening week, one of my children will not manage to get their hands on this puzzle and destroy it. That would be a tragedy. You have to put some sort of gate around this. This was fun. Thanks everybody for asking questions. Or if you didn't ask questions, that's totally fine too. Just thanks for tuning in. I guess if I'm a good streamer, I would like raid somebody. That's what you do after you stream. You raid other people. I don't really know who I would raid. Is anybody that I have watched before streaming? Not that anybody who's interested in nervous system and jigsaw puzzles would be interested in random games. But the game that I play and watch sometimes is Slay the Spire. So I will raid a Slay the Spire streamer. All right. Thanks everybody for watching. See you next week.